Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be working on the adding extra specific clay. Last time we talked about carving away clay and making sure that all of the pieces of your fantasy creature are carved away and put to the right place and all that. Today what we're going to do is adding the extra clay. So like right here along the back, I want to add some little extra clay spines, like little spikes. And then in the front here on the head, I'm going to add some eyes, and I might add some teeth if I can, and I might add a few little more horns on his head. So what I would do for this is you'll think of the one place that you want to add things, like the spines right here, and you're going to need your popsicle stick to do the scoring marks, because whenever you add clay on, you need to score and slip. So make sure that you're using the scoring and the slipping to get that stuff on. Okay, and I'm going to use some slip. I've got my slip over here off the screen. I'm going to put some slip on. And then I'm going to take some fresh clay. The clay should be nice and wet and fresh. It shouldn't be crusty and dry. If you've got crusty, dry clay, make sure you get fresh stuff. And I'm going to take this and I'm just going to make some little points. And I'm just going to take it, put a little slip on the bottom, just like I would when I was attaching the other parts. And I'm just going to take it and set it on top and then twist it into the place that I want. And then I'm going to have to go back to the carving away clay and kind of sculpting the clay to the right way that I want it. So there's one. And depending on what you're adding, everyone is going to have something different. So I can't really say one size fits all for everything. But try to have at least one place on your Ocarina Fantasy Creature that you're going to be adding that extra clay on. Okay, so there's kind of a second spine on there. It might be kind of hard to see from the camera angle, so if I turn it, you can kind of see that those are like little triangular points that I'm just going to line up. So I'm going to continue that. Again, it's kind of hard from the camera angle to see what I've got there. But you're getting the idea of kind of adding those on. And as you add on that extra clay, just like you did with any of the other clay adding process, you're going to have to be sculpting it, right? It's a three-dimensional object, so you need to make sure that it looks good from the top, it looks good from the side, it looks good from the other side, depending on where it is. Now, as you're making this, be sure that you are still conscious about your mouthpiece and your holes, so that you're not making it so that you can't play your ocarina later. So you want to make sure that you've got it to worked up to the sense where you can definitely still play your ocarina. Now for this top piece here, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to kind of add them in one big long line. I'm going to take like a little coil of clay, and I'm going to add that onto the neck piece here, because I just don't have enough room for those big, huge pieces. So I'm going to kind of add my slip and score onto the front of there, and I'm going to take this coil and smush it down around the edge so that I can kind of carve the clay away instead of adding it. So depending on how your animal looks and where you need to make things, you're going to have to do that differently. So I'm going to take this, and instead of adding, I'm just going to take these little pieces and I'm going to cut little teeny pieces out of what I've then just added and kind of re-sculpt them as I work so that they're smaller, because I can't add them if they're that small, and then I can kind of like sculpt them as I go rather than adding them on. So you can kind of see how I'm working this. I'm just carving out from the side, and if I turn this so you can get a side view again, it kind of looks like that. And what I'm going to be doing is basically just pinching a little bit out, taking a little bit out each time and adding them in, and then pinching it and taking clay off so it's the right size. So as you move through, make sure you're doing a couple things. Number one, you're getting rid of all the seams so that there's no place where the clay has a tendency to break. And then likewise, you're having a really believable three-dimensional form that you're creating. Okay, so that you don't have the point where people are like, oh, that just looks hokey, that doesn't look realistic. but you're getting a point where, oh yeah, wow, that looks like, you know, dragon spines, or that looks like a unicorn's horn, or whatever it is that you're adding on to your fantasy creature. So looking at that, you can kind of see how I'm adding those spines on. Likewise, I'll work those a little bit later so I can make them look nice off screen, but you get the idea. Likewise, if you're going to add something on, like if I want an eye here, I'm going to take my paintbrush and kind of push in the area where I want the eye to be. So I'm kind of like making the eye socket. I'm going to take a little clay slip and put that in there. Then I'm going to take the eyeball, roll a little eyeball out here. Okay, that's a little too big. A little smaller. Okay, and then I'm going to put this in to the eye and then kind of sculpt it and shape it so that it has an eyeball shape, so that you can see how I've added that on. And in order to make it look nice, I want to get rid of the seam and yet use my popsicle stick here to really have a nice edge around the eye, like that. Now it's a little bit too sticking out. If I turn it this way, you can see it's a big blob there. I want it to be a little flatter, so I'm just gonna pinch a little bit of that off and then round it back out and sculpt it. So again, sculpting the clay as you're adding it on is really important so that you get those pieces looking nice. I'm just going to take this popsicle stick and push it in to make kind of like the eyeball shape. And then, so you get the idea as far as adding the extra clay. I kind of added these spines on, which are not main body parts, but they add extra detail to my ocarina. Likewise, here the eye, I might add some toes later. I might even add a tail right up here if I can. So I will add those things off of screen, and I'll continue to sculpt my ocarina off screen. And in the next session, we'll talk about the impressed textures and the incised lines for your design.